people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that America's own Zarena McCoy was in action south of the border yesterday opposite the ring Alejandro Rojas Rivera for what was a lesser version of the IBO title in the super featherweight division. Super featherweight, that's 130 pounds. That's where Alicia Baumgartner currently reigns as that division's undisputed champion. And that's where Zarena McCoy's fight took place last night. It appears that Zarena is making her way down in weight. In recent fights, she's fought as high as super lightweight. Super lightweight, that's 140 pounds.
That's where she fought Monica Henao.
She's been making her way down in weight since then. Her last fight before yesterday's was in the lightweight division. This fight was at super featherweight.
Zarena was rebounding off a loss yesterday, and she is now back in the winner's bracket at a weight that I think is a better weight for her. I feel like, given Zarena McCoy's age and her physical dimensions, ideally, she should be campaigning at either featherweight or super featherweight, where last night's fight took place.
Previous years, Zarena McCoy has campaigned as low as super flyweight. That's 115 pounds, though over time you can see that as she ages, her body is still growing. She is filling out. I don't think she can get that low anymore. 115, 118, even 122 might be pushing it, but 126, featherweight, either featherweight or super featherweight, I feel like those would be the ideal divisions for her to campaign in, ideal weights. These are very deep divisions that have a lot going on, a lot of opportunities there for a fighter like Zarena McCoy, anywhere in between 126 and 130. I do feel like she should continue to make her way down from super featherweight down to featherweight, spend some time there, have some fights there, continue to amass professional experience. She's got 13 professional bouts, and there's still more growing and more learning to do. She's only 22 years old. She's got time, and now that she's back in the winner's bracket, either 126 or 130 would be ideal. Zarena's fight does not appear to have been picked up by a major broadcaster here stateside, the fight having taken place south of the border. It wasn't on DAZN, it wasn't on ESPN, so we have no footage of the fight, but it's good to see that she's back at a healthier weight for her, a better weight for her, and she's back in the winner's bracket.
Zarena McCoy, the pure boxer. Zarena McCoy, the southpaw, the crafty one, the skilled one that got herself back in the winner's bracket yesterday. Congratulations to her, and let's see what's next for her.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, in Bayamón, Puerto Rico, unbeaten up-and-comer as Stephanie Pineiro was in action, racking up her 6th victory as a professional against the late replacement from Brazil, Simone de Silva. Simone, she's been in there with practically everyone. Practically.
She was a late replacement. She was standing in for the Dominican Republic's own Diana Santana, yet another journeywoman veteran that's been in there with everybody. Practically everybody.
Initially, it was supposed to be Stephanie versus Diana. It ended up being Stephanie versus Simone in what was billed as a welterweight contest. Welterweight, that's where Sandy Ryan's got the WBO, Jessica McCaskill, she's got the WBC and WBA titles, and very soon, Natasha Jonas. She will be defending her IBF title against former champion Michaela Mayer. That's the landscape at welterweight, the landscape at 147, where Stephanie's fight last took place.
This is where the hard-punching D. Allen of the United Kingdom campaigns. This is where amateur standout and Olympic gold medalist Lauren Price campaigns. So the talent pool at 147 is filling up, and Stephanie She's a part of that scene.
That's where her fight last night took place. Stephanie fought Simone de Silva to a decision, which caught me by surprise because Simone has been stopped by lesser fighters, lesser punchers, and smaller women than Stephanie Pineiro. I can only gather that because Simone was a late replacement, and that's not who Stephanie was preparing for, probably threw her off a little bit, but she still won a dominant points win.
In what was her third fight this year, she was last in action a little over a month ago in September.
Capping off the year with a win in December. Congratulations to her. We then come to the main event of the Golden Boy show, Ryan Garcia's triumphant return to the ring. Opposite the ring, the hard-nosed Oscar Duarte, who for long spells of this fight had Ryan Garcia under a lot of pressure, and it was starting to look questionable as to whether or not Ryan Garcia would be able to weather the storm. The fight starts out, and Oscar Duarte, who's the somewhat shorter, stumpier fighter,
You see, he's jabbing at Ryan Garcia's body. That's how the fight started out. Coming in at a slight crouch, bending at the waist and knees, jabbing at Ryan Garcia's midsection. It became very clear, very early, that Oscar Duarte, he means to stop Ryan with a body shot. The amount of time that he spent going there or trying to.
You know how Ryan's last fight ended? You see the strategy. He was stopped by a body shot in his last fight, and Oscar Duarte is a rather accomplished body puncher, so he knew to go there and try to in the early goings of this match as Ryan Garcia was beating those feet and creating space, getting some jabs out there, the occasional right hand, the occasional uppercut, none of which was stopping Oscar Duarte from coming forward or slowing him down. Most of those punches were caught on the arms and gloves. Ineffective flurries from Ryan Garcia as Oscar Duarte barreled forward. And being honest with you, up until Ryan finally stopped this guy, I only had Ryan winning maybe 2 rounds.
2 of the 8. He didn't look good in this fight, not to me.
Considering Ryan's gripes about weight stipulations in the Gervonta Davis match, he attached weight stipulations to this one. So in many ways, it's the pot calling the kettle flat or calling the kettle black or whatever it is. He was throwing stones in a glass house. You can't criticize Gervonta for weight stipulations when you use them on Oscar Duarte. This guy normally campaigns down there at 135, where initially most of us thought this fight was going to be fought at 140. It was basically fought at welterweight, just north of 140, at 143.
Criticizes Gervonta for bringing him down, but he himself brought Oscar Duarte up, and it's hard to say that he dominated Oscar Duarte. It's hard to say that Ryan looked good in this fight. I didn't have a horse in the race.
I didn't have a stake in either guy's success. Put simply, I couldn't trust either guy, and moving forward, it's hard to say that I can trust Ryan based on how he looked in this fight when for long spells of it, he looked like a man trying to hold back a storm, constantly complaining to the ref whenever Oscar would catch up to him and let his hands go. Those flurries, those body shots, Ryan using some bizarre version of the Philly shell, the shell guard.
According to Ryan's Instagram post, it wasn't under Derek James's instruction he used that shell guard. Quite the opposite. Derek told him not to use it.
Told him never to do that. The trade-off. While Ryan Garcia looked quite awkward and vulnerable using that shell guard, it did do an adequate job of protecting his midsection, his body, from Oscar Duarte's body shots. So even if it didn't look all that great, it still did the job. It wasn't pretty, but it worked.
I shudder to think what could have happened and would have happened if Ryan were using a different guard, like a high guard.
His body would have been more vulnerable, more exposed, and he might have bit the big one. So as awkward as it looked, he did a good job of protecting his body with that shell guard.
Though still failing to impress.
For me and my money, this showing, he didn't look good for long spells of this fight in spite of Chris Mannix and the 3 judges scoring the match. They may have had him up, but all I could give Ryan was about 2 rounds, 2 of the 8. He was getting pushed around, getting bullied against a naturally smaller fighter whilst constantly complaining to the ref about either low blows or punches that were sailing to the back of his head. All the while, he's the one turning in that direction. I don't think it was Oscar Duarte's intention to land rabbit punches on Ryan so much as how Ryan was angling his body. That's where the punches were going as he fought out of that awkward, very awkward, poorly executed shell guard. The referee riding Oscar Duarte's case mistakes, which he made light of after the fight in the post-fight presser.
Constant breaks in the action to issue warnings to Oscar Duarte.
So let's condense it. In spite of Ryan Garcia pulling a knockout out of his ass, ending this fight knockout fashion, I'm not impressed with what I saw, and it's not encouraging towards either a 140-pound campaign or a 147-pound campaign, because Oscar Duarte is really just a lightweight that Ryan Garcia brought up in weight in the fight. He's looking human. He's constantly complaining to the ref. The ref is basically helping him. The stoppage itself seemed a little bit premature, that you could have allowed Oscar to go on.
He was wobbled. He was on unsteady legs. I'm not saying that he wasn't, but given how well he was doing up until that point, you could have allowed the contest to go on.
It just seems like James Green was in a hurry to wave this fight off.
He was.
Not dissimilar from what we saw in Dubois versus Lorena.
In order to bail the A-side fighter out.
Behind a performance like that, it's hard to imagine that Ryan can beat any of the solid 140 or 147 pounders. He didn't call any of them out after the match. He called out Rolly Romero, which is probably the only chance he has of winning a belt anywhere at or around these weights.
Not that he made the weight, not that he made 140 pounds for this fight. It was contracted at a catch weight of 143 pounds, but was supposed to be for a WBA gold title. I don't even understand how that works.
O'Hara Davies is still the mandatory challenger to Rolly Romero's belt anyway. Looks to have his fight with Ishmael Barroso rescheduled for the first quarter of next year. He's the one with a legitimate claim to challenge Rolly, not Ryan.
But Ryan was still awarded that WBA gold title after the fight.
Thus, the WBA are allowing Ryan to win a 140-pound version of their title, having not made the 140-pound limit. It's a clown show. It's a circus.
So maybe he does get to get Rolly in the ring before O'Hara Davies. I don't know.
In any event, he's back in the winner's bracket, and congratulations to him, but I can't say I'm impressed with what I saw. Now, as part of yesterday's broadcast, it was officially announced that early next year, in January, Jaime Munguia will in fact be fighting John Ryder, a fight that was widely speculated and talked about the last couple of weeks. We more or less already had an idea this fight was coming, and what could serve as a prelude to a Jaime Munguia versus Canelo Alvarez fight, yet another fight that's widely rumored to be going down next year. This fight would be a who did it better kind of deal, John Ryder being a common opponent between them.
I said it immediately after the fight with Canelo that I wouldn't be surprised if Golden Boy pushes to make a fight between Jaime and John, because John, even though he lost that fight, he went the distance, he acquitted himself well, and he didn't quit.
He didn't give up when you consider that he didn't give up like Billy Joe Saunders, and he didn't stink out the joint like Jermel Charlo. John Ryder went 12 rounds with Canelo Alvarez, not by staying away, playing it safe, and being on the outside. He went 12 rounds with Canelo.
Actually fighting Canelo, trying to fight Canelo, and even though he got dropped 2 times, and even though he got dominated, he still proved he's a hard-nosed guy, he's a tough out, and if nothing else, Canelo dominated him, but Jaime Munguia is no Canelo.
You recall Jaime Munguia's near-death experience with Sergey Derevyanchenko and how he had to labor against the very weathered Gabriel Rosado. John Ryder could give him some issues. John Ryder, who's 35 years old, to Jaime Munguia, who's 27. John is 8 years older than Jaime and several inches shorter than Jaime.
But he could still give him some issues. He could still give him some problems. John Ryder, like Jaime Munguia, is a mid-range to inside fighter, a combination puncher, and a southpaw.
A durable southpaw who went the distance with the hard-punching Callum Smith and Canelo Alvarez, upset the apple cart for Daniel Jacobs, upset the apple cart for then unbeaten Zach Parker. Could he upset the apple cart for Jaime Munguia?
If nothing else, he can put on a show trying.
I like the fight. I like the fight on the predication that it's likely to yield a fan-friendly aesthetic. Pressure fighter versus pressure fighter, neither fighter with the propensity to take a step backwards or back down, back out of an exchange. That's what they both are, John Ryder and Jaime Munguia. They're pressure fighters, close quarters, mid-range, they're inside fighters, durable ones that like to throw a lot of punches in bunches. So as far as the aesthetic, it has all the makings of a fan-friendly fight.
You've been paying attention. Jaime doesn't always do good under pressure.
The Takeshi Inoue Dennis Hogan fights at 154, the more recent Sergey Derevianchenko fight at 168. What you will notice about Jaime is what you notice about a lot of bully-style fighters. They don't like a guy that's going to step to them, fight them off and fight them back and perhaps put them on their back foot. What made the Derevianchenko fight so difficult for Jaime is that he doesn't respond well to combination punching, combination punchers, and that's what Sergey is. That's what John is. Mid-range to inside, and we know he can take a shot. He took Canelo's punches for 12 rounds, fought with a broken nose, got dropped 2 times.
Fucker wouldn't stay down.
He's a hard-nosed guy, tough as old boots, fighting out of the southpaw stance, and he is a combination puncher. He is a pressure guy, like Jaime is a pressure guy. This is a phone booth fight, an elevator fight, waiting to happen, and I'm looking forward to it. As far as the outcome, you do kind of have to lean towards Jaime on the predication that both these guys got the same sweet spot. The rounds may be close, they may be very close rounds that are hard to score, but Jaime is the house fighter. Jaime is the one that has the promotion behind him. This is a Golden Boy Promotions show, not a matchroom show. The aesthetic. I see John Ryder, who's the shorter, stumpier fighter, coming in at a slight crouch, bending at the waist and knees, closing the distance on Jaime, and crowding him mid-range to inside, getting off punches until Jaime finally gets fed up and unloads, and unleashes a barrage of punches round after round. Jaime Munguia is a pressure guy, but he's a pressure guy who fights in spurts. He fights in bursts. It's not constant like what you see from John or what you see from David Benavidez or Christian Mabili. Jaime Munguia explodes and unleashes a salvo of punches intermittently throughout the round. So while John might be coming on and having some success, in moments I see Jaime pushing him back and pushing him off, fighting him off.
Can he knock him out?
Not sure he can. Callum Smith couldn't knock him out. Danny Jacobs couldn't knock him out. He went the distance with Canelo, so Jaime's gonna put him away?
Points decision seems likely.
Widespread rumors about this being a prelude, build-up for a Canelo-Alvarez fight in May. I'm still curious as to how that would work out since this is a Golden Boy Promotions show. Jaime is still a Golden Boy Promotions fighter. I'm sure that Jaime would like to share the ring with Canelo-Alvarez, but would Canelo? Would he return to DAZN? He's got 2 more fights left in his PBC deal, and even if he didn't, I don't think he wants to work with Golden Boy.
PBC that's rumored to be jumping into bed with Amazon, and they will be their distributor in the coming years. So maybe what they do is they send Jaime over to Amazon, they share the rights and distribute them jointly on the Amazon platform and the DAZN platform. There's too much money for Jaime to make for him to pass this up.
And he could lose. Of course he could lose, but he could just as easily lose to Christian Mabili or David Benavidez or somebody else at 168 just as easily as he could lose to Canelo, with the difference being you don't make the money with them that you can make with Canelo. In fact, you could win some of those fights and still not make the same money you'd make losing to Canelo. So if nothing else, the financial incentive is there. That might be enough to get him to cross over.
Got to get past John first.
Some people aren't convinced that he can. I figure that so long as Jaime is still standing at the end of that fight, they will award him the decision by hook or by crook. Jaime Munguia on point is the logical way to go in what promises to be a fan-friendly affair.
Look for this slate next year, in January.